I think the public's fear of hackers is basically the fear of the unknown. What can these hackers do? Can they take down our critical infrastructure? Can they steal my identity? Can they empty out my bank account?
Most, but not all, are Americans. Most, not all, are men. And the surprising thing is that they're almost all very, very well educated. They're not kids in a garage somewhere. And the common factor that they all have, men or women, Americans or not, is their great attraction to the beauty and complexity of cyberspace.
Hackers that are, motivated by the love of technology, by hacktivism, by the pursuit of knowledge, is somewhat misunderstood. Hacker is somebody that's really fascinated with technology, somebody that has a passion to learn, wants to meet some sort of challenge. It's somebody that can take a electronic device, for example, and manipulate it to do things that weren't originally intended.
They range about the virtual wilderness because that's increasingly their world. Yes, they're physical beings, but they live there.
When I was a hacker, it was the entertainment, the thrill, the seduction of adventure, learning new things, exploration, going where no hacker has gone before. It was more of an intellectual exercise.
Some hackers have been caught over the years, some in cases that we know about publicly, some that we don't. I'd say in the cases that I'm aware of, it's almost always been happenstance, a lucky break.
My first brush with federal law enforcement agency, the FBI, was in 1988 when a friend, a former friend, had turned me in. And I remember they took me to a place called Terminal Island Federal Prison. So I remember showing up on the court on Monday and thinking I was going to get out on bail, for hacking. And not hacking for money, not destroying anything, but basically being a snoop. So what the prosecutor had told the federal judge during what they call a detention hearing is that if they let me near a phone, if they release me or if I'm in custody, that I could somehow pick up that phone and whistle and connect to NORAD, or Northern Air Defense, and somehow start a nuclear holocaust. But to my amazement, the judge believed him. And I ended up being held in solitary confinement for over about a year, about 8 months and some odd days. I was released on supervised release from my deck hacking case. And for the next 2 years, I kept my nose clean. I actually got involved in working out and doing other things and not really involved with computer-related stuff. And then the FBI had sent this informant. So this guy approached me and we started trading information. Then I started wanting to investigate this guy because I was just very suspicious about the questions he would ask. I wasn't sure who this guy was. So to make a long story short, I was able to call up a certain department of the Department of Motor Vehicles and use law enforcement requester codes and have them fax the driver's license copies with the photograph to a Kinko's in Studio City, California. But there were people waiting for me. It was DMV investigators and the FBI where they were staking this Kinko's out. I went outside to the back door and they had a payphone there. And I was calling up the DMV to scream at them for being so incompetent to send me the wrong thing. And then these suits walk out the door. There's a woman and 3 guys. And I thought that was odd. And they look at me and I'm looking at them. And they go, "We want to talk with you." And I go, "Who are you?" They go, "DMV investigators." And I hung up the phone calmly. And I said, "You know what? I don't want to talk to you." So I took the fax, I threw it up in the air and ran. I was a fugitive for about 2.5 years. And at the time, I treated it as an adventure. See, I didn't want to think about it, I'm running from the law, I have to look over my shoulder every minute. I basically was very adept at hacking the system. I was able to create myself a new identity. I obtained a really good position at a law firm in Denver. Didn't think of myself as a thief. I could have easily committed credit card fraud. I could have hacked into companies that, attorney law firms that do mergers and acquisitions. And I could have taken that information and maybe cleverly, did trading, and made a lot of money. But that was the line that the hacker ethos that I didn't cross, because that was going from hacking for intellectual challenge, entertainment, and knowledge into just using it as a means to commit criminal acts. I remember in 1994 what I used to do is when I was a fugitive, I used to use LexisNexis a lot and search for my name. So if any newspaper in the world printed my name, I would see it. And I remember one day I was in South Carolina. I was on a golf resort with some friends, and I ran my name through LexisNexis, and I couldn't believe it because it was a press release by the United States Marshal Service, and it went UPI, not even AP, UPI, asking for the public's help in hunting me down. That I was this master computer cracker that could basically do anything, right? And I read this article in such disbelief, they can't be talking about me. And at that time of reading that article, I knew it was serious, serious stuff. I knew if they ever had found me, I'm gonna be the biggest example in the world. They were able to track my computer logins to a cellular phone. And so what they did is they went out in Raleigh, North Carolina, and through radio direction finding, were able to find the location of my whereabouts. What's kind of interesting that the hackers that I've known about, back in my hacking days, some of those guys have founded computer security companies that are the most successful in the world. A lot of the people that were interested in the hacking genre have went on to become security experts because now they could use these skills. They enjoy this type of work. It's interesting and challenging, and they're able to make money and support themselves. But what the problem is for someone like me and maybe other hackers is the issue of trust. How can you build trust? Because business relies, number one, on trust. And because of my stigma of having a criminal history, it's a significant challenge, and I'm working at those challenges every day.
I think it's very ironic that we treat hackers today with such hostility. You can do more time for hacking than for armed robbery in many jurisdictions. And I think this is just silly. It seems to me that it's born of a fear of cyberspace in general. We have such a lack of familiarity. Most of us, and certainly most of us in positions of power, didn't grow up in a world where it was natural to have a life in cyberspace as well as a life in the physical world. And so it's this lack of familiarity. Fear always leads to this kind of persecution. And we may not be doing as much as we should to recruit them, but others certainly are. Other countries, criminal organizations, and terrorist networks. Now they do it very cautiously because they worry that maybe these fellows are working for us, but they are beginning to do it. And it seems to me that we've forgotten how valuable these information scientists can be to us.
Fortunately, computer hacking is a skill that you could use ethically today, which back in my day, there were no companies that were doing security assessments because it wasn't really considered a threat like today. So it's really an interesting transition to take these skills and use them in socially acceptable ways.
And it seems to me we have to have a deeper understanding of and a greater appreciation of these people. The answer is not to lock them up, or to put bracelets around their wrists or their ankles, or to keep them away from computers. The answer is to understand them better, convince them to join the cause that we're all a part of, making a world safer, more prosperous, and less permissive of terror. And these hackers can play an enormous role in bringing that world about.